don't know about you, but I don't know what to believe anymore half the time. I mean, we sort of know that all the media is owned by someone or other, and, you know, he who pays the piper calls the tune, and it's sort of natural human interest, you can understand it. I mean, if you or I owned a newspaper, we probably wouldn't want its editorial line to push something which was widely divergent from our personal beliefs or interests. So, you know, it's just common sense really that the news that's coming to you is in some way filtered, and it's just as bad with the alternative media, in my opinion. It's become a bandwagon. Okay, there will be people out there who are sincerely trying to convey information as they see it and to the best of their knowledge, and they won't have the vested interest, shall we say. But then there's going to be a whole lot of those who just jump on the bandwagon, and seeing that taking a particular stand is popular, they'll just feed it. It's the oldest trick in the book, in a way. It just brings to mind something I once heard about Hitler, for instance, in his speeches. He'd sort of say something, see what sort of response he got, and then if it seemed that the crowd liked it, he would continue until they were sort of in a frenzy of things that they could approve of. The thing is, when you're taking in information, it's very easy to sort of get caught up in it, shall we say. At the time, things sound perfectly reasonable, but then on reflection you start to think of the exceptions, and it's very important to do that, in my opinion, to actually think about stuff. At the moment it seems that the media would have us believe in, shall we say, a complete polarization of views, where, you know, you either take one side or the other, and you take on board every nuance of that message, when in fact, if you're an objective person, you can probably see, well, there's something in that, and then there's sort of the craziness of it, and then you look at the other side and you say, well, they got a point, but there's also some nut jobs over there. I mean, I've sort of, in the last 5 years since the pandemic, I was rather suspicious of the whole thing, shall we say. I thought we were being scared to death, and so I was very suspicious of it all, and I tended to mix with other people who are of that ilk. Now the snag is, though, or one of the things you find in such a circumstance, is that there are always people with, shall we say, extreme views. There are sort of hobbyists who go out to find the most exotic reasons, most exotic and indeed often unlikely reasons for things being so or otherwise. And there is a peril in that, and one almost wonders sometimes if there's a deliberate attempt to sow extreme and irrational views, because it discredits those people who are more moderate, who have a more balanced view of things, which is closer to reality. It's a way of perhaps diffusing some of the... Well, basically, I think what I'm saying is that if you can say, well, this is our view, and those people over there are loonies who believe in this and that and the other, you can instantly dismiss them. And we saw this a lot with such things as COVIDiots and anti-vaxxers and all that kind of thing, when there certainly would have been some of them, but there are also people, I like to consider myself fairly rational, who had reasonable doubts and who wanted to make their own choices. So you might say, well, that sounds fair enough, and it also sounds, shall we say, very English. We don't really like people making decisions for us, do we? We consider ourselves to some extent free. You know, we say we live in a free country, or we aspire to live in a free country. We may say that, well, in some ways it's obviously not free, or there are limits on that freedom within the law, all that kind of thing. So we have a sort of measured view on things. We certainly don't like people dictating to us, and I think that's obviously a very healthy trait. I mean, that is a trait of a democratic people, that we don't want to be dictated to. We want to make up our own minds, and we want to be, well, the snag is, with making up our own minds comes the responsibility, and that's the thing that some people aren't so keen on. They don't want to be responsible for the decisions they make. They would rather, in a sense, that they could point to somebody else and say that they made up their mind. That's, to my mind, most unhealthy and frankly rather weak. Okay, so getting back to the information we receive. So if we basically take the view that, I suppose I'm basically saying we have to take everything with a pinch of salt, and sometimes it's quite a large pinch of salt. And it's also sifting and sorting the information that matters. I mean, a lot of things simply, there's not really anything we can do about it. It's happening thousands of miles away, and there's just nothing we can. It's just clogging up our minds in a way. That's what I feel, that there is the media would like you to be interested. They want to say, look over here, when perhaps we should be looking more close to home and seeing what's going on at home. The kind of things which are going on at home have been some bans and restrictions. You know, we're becoming less of a free speech society, and a lot of people are talking about a two-tier society where the rights of some people are superior to the rights of another. So that clearly isn't how a democratic society should be run. Yes, what we basically need for a democratic society to work is justice. That so the two-tier society, or maybe it's even three-tier, because there are some people who can just do what they like and they're never going to be held for account for it. I mean, they'll get away with their knighthoods and their money and whatever, and they'll be long dead before anybody's investigating them. So, and who writes the history? There's that as well. But do we have a just society at the moment? I mean, is the law operating without fear or favour, which is the sort of benchmark of justice, that it should be accessible to all, and that it should be blind, but it should also be merciful. So when Farage, for instance, I believe one of his, he probably said it a fortnight ago, that's probably all it was. I understand it was some comments about El Salvador and the sort of supermax prisons there. And I mean, I've looked at them, and okay, these people they're putting in there may be bad people. Some of them have been put in there summarily, and you know, they may be in there by mistake, in what is basically a living hell. And while you know, the people outside of prison may be saying, oh yes, things are wonderful, they've got the gangs off the streets. Well, that's fair enough, and you can understand that point of view. But when I would hesitate to say those who consider themselves good are worse than the people they're actually imposing justice of some description on, then you've moved over to the dark side, so to speak. I believe in British law we have a thing called a reasonable person, and that's basically a person with common sense and a certain sensibility to fairness, shall we say. I don't know how many of them still exist. I suppose we'd all like to consider ourselves that, but then, of course, look, finding our own faults is often not the easiest thing. So, you hear, I read comments about banning this organisation or banning that action or whatever the hell it is, banning certain speech. Well, you end up simply, eventually something you like will be banned, something you want to do will be banned, something which is perfectly reasonable for you will be banned. So if you're going to ban something, it really needs to be done with the most, as a last resort basically, and with the greatest of deliberation. It shouldn't really, I don't believe that things should largely be done by banning, because you're simply, ideally I wouldn't say you want to educate people, there is an element of educating people in that, but it's a rocky road when you simply go down the route of banning things, and perhaps people don't have the sense to find more constructive activity. It's like I've been talking about integrity and all that, and I certainly haven't been talking about it lightly. We perhaps need to be more engaged and to be more concerned about what's going on locally, both on a national level and perhaps a local level. I mean, that's the way that's where we can understand many of the issues, and where we can actually hope to have some input, and where people can get together and push for things that they feel might improve the situation. It needs, in my opinion, to have a sort of greater weight, greater intelligent content. It's simplistic solutions to the problem. Most problems are quite complex. I mean, you've got human being in there for a start, and while humans are broadly similar in many respects, we're quite wildly diverse in others. And we have two natures, you might argue. We have our physical body, which puts certain limitations and requirements on us. And then we also have, shall we say, mind and possibly the higher faculties. Those things which are not so much connected with the physical situation, but are to do with the moral, intellectual, spiritual side of life. And the two do not generally get on terribly easily. Anybody with a bit of self-reflection can look at themselves. It's St. Paul, isn't it? You might think I'm a Bible thumper, all this references I do, but it's roughly, the rough quote is, the things that I would not do, I do, and the things that I would do, I do not. We're very much in that situation. We sort of can't help ourselves in some ways. That is the human weakness. And then there's the two brothers in the vineyard, isn't there? There's the one who said he would and did not, and the one who said he wouldn't and then went and did the work in the vineyard. So there's nothing new under the sun. But anyway, back to information and the information we receive and how we filter it. As I say, when we receive information, we're often sort of, let's use the word entranced. You know, we hear it, it all sounds reasonable, it all sounds logical, and then of course we get away and we start thinking about the exceptions and we think of the other side. That's if we think at all. And that's the important thing, that whatever information we receive, we really have to consider it more deeply and also consider it from a point of view. And I would say that quite a reasonable point of view is from a moral point of view, and the particular morals which, say, I've mentioned in previous videos have been integrity and also the golden rule of doing unto others as you would have them done unto you. These seem fairly sound ideas and a good starting point. So basically, if you want to make a difference, then make a difference in your own life and the lives of those around you, however small. Just start to do your best to form a relationship with integrity and also try to use the golden rule. Thanks for watching.